Okay guys, welcome back for another video of Master of Command, and today we're going to be covering the update 1.1.0 Engineering Core, which just went live in Master of Command. I'm not going to go ahead and read through everything. I was reading through everything in a previous recording, but then I realized 30 minutes in that my microphone was muted and that video was unusable. So we're just going to go through and do kind of like a Spark Notes version of what I think is important. So they've added modding to the game. Very cool. There's some really interesting stuff here. You should take a look at it if you're into that. The difficulty rework, all they did was kind of change the names on some of the difficulty modifiers that so for example, Marshal is the equivalent of General, etc. um yep, some more just like general campaign stuff here. So here's some changes to the difficulty modifiers. One, scouting parties, which boosts enemy movement speed, has been reduced to only plus 25% instead of plus 30%. And then the officer death chance from reckless officers has been increased from 30% to plus 35%. So take note of that. Difficulty modifiers have been tweaked a little bit. There have been some big changes to the AI. Number one being that their pathfinding should be better so that they march more into combat, more like a line compared to how they were marching into battle, kind of like in this piecemeal fashion. And sometimes their units would take like really weird angles and like run across the battlefield and they'd expose their flanks. So that should be better now. The enemy AI should be more organized. Also, artillery will no longer push ahead of the main force, so that means no more sniping them with light infantry or cavalry with carbines. And now enemy AI will have a bias or a weight towards getting items that are explicitly beneficial to them, like elevation screws, gunner implements for artillery, etc. And they're not going to be getting items like medicinal herbs or surgeons that have pretty much no value for them. Um, a couple little nuggets in here. When the AI charges you, if you try to pull out of that charge, the enemy AI will be locked for like a couple of seconds so that you can go ahead and try to escape from that melee. So that's kind of cool. And there was a fix here where the AI was bugging out when your cavalry would come near them and then leave. So that shouldn't happen anymore. There have been some map changes, which are neat. Let's go ahead and get to some of the campaign changes. The headquarters has been delayed in every act. In Act 1, it's by 10 days. In Act 2, it's 15. In Act 3, it's 20. So now you'll have more time to run around and get stuff done. Also, the headquarters had a movement speed nerf, so it shouldn't be coming at you quite so quickly anymore. Again, giving you more time to do things before the HQ battle. And then the second HQ battle in Act 3, there's now a 1 month delay between defeating the first HQ and then having the second HQ spawn. So once again, you'll have more time to do things. All of this makes the game easier, gives you more time to run around, do encounters, get experience, make more money, buy more items, etc. So these will make the campaign side of things easier. There's also some changes here where the first patrol you encounter in Act 1 will be smaller than a typical patrol to help out our newer fans of the game, newer players of the game, so that they can help get better acquainted. Act 3 patrols are going to have one less brigade in them. Act 3 encamped armies will have less powerful units. Field armies are going to be slightly slower. Drilling veterancy gain has been improved by plus 25% for units, plus 50% for officers. Forging has been buffed. The movement speed penalty isn't as high. Ammunition is now 25% cheaper. Raiding is now more effective because there's only a 20% chance of notifying the HQ instead of 25%, and you get more loot. You're going from 2 loot to 3 for villages and 4 loot to 5 for cities. There have been some changes to officers. The price ceiling should be lower now, and you should be able to find a wider variety of officer ranks in Acts 2 and 3. You're also going to get 10% more money in in the game after battles, but that is because the price of all items has been reduced by 10. So this is to offset that. Pathfinding has been improved on the campaign map, so now your army should be taking a more time efficient path. As you can see here, the new pathfinding would take you across here, and it'd only take 5 days if this is where you wanted to get to. Whereas with the previous pathfinding, it would take you along the road, and it would take a longer amount of time to get to this encampment. The item cost modifiers at settlements has it apparently wasn't working, but it should be now. So take note of that. And I mean, there are some other things here that are interesting to read through, but they're kind of minor, so I'm not going to bother with them. This one is a little important. So the first depot that you come across, the coin option, the taller option, has been taken away, and it's been replaced with a reservist option just because apparently the money was too obvious and too powerful of a choice, which I agree with. So this makes you think about it a little bit more. Next up, we've got some reworks to some of the nations, some of the armies, and some of the doctrines. So first off, Russia, they're hold on a second. Their provision consumption is now lower. It used to be 20%. It's now only 15% extra compared to other nations. So they should be a little bit more forgiving with their provisions. Also, the Imperial Army's bonus was changed. It used to give you a reduction on the cost of recruits. Now it gives you plus 15% casualty restoration after battle. So that will hopefully mean that they're a little less manpower hungry. When I played with them, it felt like they needed a lot of manpower just because they were always taking a lot of losses, and this will help offset that. The Cossack army was changed a little bit. Instead of getting the extra loot, they now get +3 thalers per regiment and raiding stance. So basically, the Plunderer doctrine, if you ever came across that, that was given to the Cossacks, and apparently their previous bonus, where it would give you +2 loot, that was made a generic doctrine, it would seem. Next up, we've got France. France had the taller drain per officer taken away, and now resources cost 10% more when you go and buy them from settlements, and opening up a new brigade costs less. So it's going to be even easier to expand your army with them, and you're not constantly going to be bleeding your money, which I think is good. I think this is a good change. Also, the Lower Rhine army had its doctrine change. It used to be plus 1% melee per regiment in your army. Now it's specific to infantry, but you get a bigger bonus. They also had their starting items changed a little bit. I think they were given this pendant and this light bayonet. So this is like free money. This is like a free like 275 or 250 gold, something like that. France's light corps got changed. They were given an additional unit here, the Volunteer Provincial Cavalry, and their army replenishment. It used to be at negative 25%. Now it's at negative 20. So they should be a little bit more forgiving. The King's Household army composition for France, which is their cavalry composition, was changed so that cavalry melee damage received is now negative 25%, and non-cavalry recruitment cost is plus 10%. So they really are going to lean more into cavalry, and they're going to be taking less damage with their cavalry, which I think this is really good. I think that was an excellent change. Austrian multinational army doctrine now has a debuff of minus 15% instead of minus 20% on veterancy gain for recruits. So it'll be a little bit easier to rank up with your recruits. Groundland Corps had their medicinal herbs swapped for gunner implements, so now their artillery will be able to reload a little bit faster. Hungarian Vanguard had a not a big change, but a meaningful change, where their light cavalry is going to be 5% more effective charging, and infantry, that accuracy debuff that they have is going from negative 15% to negative 10%. So now this army composition is going to be a little bit easier to play. It's going to be less punishing to use infantry, and you're going to get a little bit more bonus out of your light cavalry. There were some changes here to other various doctrines. They're kind of minor, so I'm not gonna go over them really. The British coffers over corpses doctrine is something though. So it used to give you plus 10 dollars daily. Now you're only at plus 8. So a very small reduction, but it is a 20% reduction in the money that you'll be receiving. So it's small on paper, but the percentage change is kind of significant. There were also some changes to the starting resources of the I believe they're called like the British Expedition, but it's nothing too major. Here's where we start getting into some of the bigger stuff. So the White Horse, this is the Hanoverian Corps' bonus. It used to give you casualty restoration after battle in exchange for stamina, less stamina. Now you get combat effectiveness in command radius plus 10% and morale outside command radius minus 10%. So this means you're going to have to keep your units near an officer in order to benefit from that combat effectiveness and to not suffer the morale penalty. Likewise, the subsidy troops had a big change, whereas before they had a fire damage reduction bonus. They now have a regiment item slot cost reduction where it's negative 70%. So you're going to save a ton of money when you buy item slots with them now. The reservist cost has also been decreased. It used to be plus 75%. Now it's only plus 50%. So a little bit more forgiving on that end. Freikorps Volunteer. So their prisoner rewards were decreased from 75% to 60%, but they also are now bleeding fewer reservists. So they were bleeding 5 reservists per regiment per day, but now it's only 3 reservists. So that's good. That means you're not going to have so many manpower problems with them. And I haven't used the Freikorps yet, but I think this is going to be a very strong composition. Their starting units aren't super great. I think the Freikorps Hussars are better than the gosh, what are the end game Prussian Hussars? Is it the Death's Head, or is the Death's Head like a special unit? Anyway, whatever the last Prussian Hussar is, I think the Freikorps Hussar is better. So this is a good unit. Freikorps Jaegers are okay. Freikorps Musketeers are okay. The Freikorps units are kind of meh, but I think that this bonus is going to be really good. The Prussian Old Corps got a bit of a nerf, so they used to be 20% plus 20% heavy infantry combat effectiveness. That is now down to plus 15%, but this is still significant. Nothing to sneeze at for sure. And then there was a doctrine change here where frontline focus used to give negative 15% fire damage, and now it's only a 10% fire damage reduction. But in exchange, you're going to be taking less of a penalty on that flanking damage if you do get flanked. Next up, some big item changes. All items in the game reduced in cost by negative 20, not including weapons and cannons. And horses were only reduced by minus 10 instead of minus 20. So this is to encourage people to go and buy more stuff. Of course, the downside to this is that Now, these items that you loot from battle and settlements and stuff, they're also going to sell for less. So that's why you're going to be gaining more plunder, more of that money in the post battle. Another change here, elevation screws got nerfed a bit. They don't provide as much of a range buff. Holiday Treatise got changed so that the reload got nerfed, and also it no longer provides max range, but it reduces ammunition consumption. So they're really trying to nerf the range bonuses that artillery was getting. Medicinal herbs took a slight nerf at 5% for each level. Grenade range was increased a little bit. You can see here that you can be a little bit further away and throw your grenades, so that's good. Iron grenades do less damage now, but you can throw them further. Here's one that's small but meaningful. All muskets and carbines have been increased by +1 in reload time. They're therefore slower to reload. That said, good and excellent quality muskets and carbines now reduce the reload time, which they previously did not. So basic muskets are marginally worse in reload, but good and excellent muskets are now slightly better than they currently are. So that's kind of neat. Grape shot. Grape shot would never spawn in the powder houses. You could never buy it. I think you could only find it through events or post battle loot. But now you'll be able to buy it in the powder house. So that's good. Also a buff to any item that reduces attrition. Okay, so here are some battle changes. Number 1, your supply wagon, no longer going to randomly shatter. Love that. Increased charge damage multiplier on flanking charges from 1.6 to 2.4. It's most notable if charging into the flank of an unbraced unit, but against brace units, the increase isn't as potent. The morale impact hasn't been modified, but actual kills have. This value sounds extreme, but in testing, I notice a +6% kill damage increase on rear charging a braced unit. The amount is higher if the unit is unbraced. So basically, if you can find an unbraced unit and you're able to charge into them, not from the front, but from the side or the back, you're going to be doing more damage to them. Officer death chance threshold reduced. So it used to start rolling a die to kill the officer with any damage taken if your unit had less than 50%. Now the dice roll only begins at 40% HP. So as long as you keep them above 40% health, your officer will not be dying. I love this fix. This fixes the bug where if your units have charged in and they're like fighting a retreating or a shattered unit, it's really hard to get them out, right? You're right clicking trying to get them out, and to charge a different unit, and they're like stuck in that melee. Well, now that's fixed, and they should be able to leave that melee and re-engage with another unit. Oh, this is also good. Your units will no longer auto-target shattered units. I would have times in my battle where I've got cavalry charging in, and I haven't checked to see where my guys are firing. I assume that they're going to hit the cavalry that's charging them, and instead they're shooting a shattered line infantry unit, and they basically throw away their volley. So glad that's being changed. There's some pretty significant artillery changes here, so I'm going to read through these. Number 1, fixed a bug that let you target enemy units who were blocked using canister shot. This allowed players to fire through multiple enemy units in order to hit a reserve unit like artillery. Now, if the fire is blocked, the damage is applied on the front unit and not the target behind them. This is a tough change for me because I loved using canister counter battery, where I would just give one artillery unit like grape shot, and I would max their range, and I would just have them snipe the enemy artillery as soon as they came into range. So now you can't do that. If there's any unit like infantry in front of that artillery, you're not going to be able to hit them anymore. Also, artillery range has been, a lot of the items that give artillery range have been nerfed or changed, so you're not going to be able to stack as much range on your artillery now. Also, artillery can no longer fire canister shot or grape shot through light infantry. This was also something I've enjoyed doing in my Austrian border troops playthrough. So now you're going to have to be more mindful about where you place your artillery, and you can't just put light infantry in front of them that acts as like a screen. So, kind of a bummer. I do really like this change though. Hidden artillery stats are now all fully revealed, which includes the blast radius and canister damage each gun has. Some guns are better at firing with canister than others, and some guns might have a larger blast radius, making them better for targeting larger groups, versus others that are more precise but have a poorer radius. I like this because unless you were watching like the dev streams or you were like really looking into the game, I don't think there's anything that tells you that howitzers are worse at using canister compared to field guns. So I'm glad that this information is being made visible so that someone who's new to the game can say, oh, look, my iron 3-pounder gun does 10 canister damage, but I don't know, my iron 6-pounder howitzer only does like 5. And they should be able to figure out, well, canister is going to be more effective on my iron 3-pound gun than my 6-pounder howitzer. So that's good. Artillery now receives minus 50% fire damage from muskets and canister shot, making them a lot less fragile in combat. It should be possible now to deploy artillery closer to the front line without risking losing it. It is now harder to exploit the use of canister shot to lob it into enemy artillery and destroy it instantly. So there we go, my counter battery tactics nerfed yet again. But the good news is if you leave your artillery exposed a little bit and they take a volley, they hopefully won't shatter. Maybe even they won't rout, but you have to test it out to see. So in any case, they'll be less vulnerable. I also like this change. High caliber artillery have had their accuracy increased by plus 5%. I feel like the highest tier artillery was super expensive and it was very inaccurate. And the only things that were saving it were high veterancy and stacking items that increased accuracy. So I'm glad that these cannons are going to inherently be a little bit more accurate. Effective range of field guns has been increased by plus 15%. Reload time of field guns reduced by 5 seconds. Bronze guns no longer get a 5-second reload buff compared to their iron counterparts, since they already have a buff in accuracy compared to the iron guns and have greater range. So this is a bit of a nerf to the bronze guns. All artillery solid shot morale damage increased by plus 5%. So that's good. This is making solid shot a little bit better. I think solid shot is kind of meh. I think canister is a lot stronger, but I like that they're trying to make round shot more viable. Also, artillery counter battery fire deals 10% more HP damage, can kill off other artillery faster, and higher HP damage will result in greater morale loss. So that's good. Even though they're taking away the canister counter battery, I like that they're trying to give us normal counter battery with round shot as an option. It's not going to be as strong, but at least they're trying to change that. All artillery pieces have been made cheaper, which I think is great. Especially some of the higher end stuff was extremely expensive. Canister shot has a new parameter where it has range drop off. It previously did not have any. Now it will lose 50% of its total damage if it's firing close to max range. This penalty is dynamically reduced the closer you're firing. This means that if you equip canister shot with a bunch of range buffs, you won't be able to use it as a sniper anymore. So again, canister shot nerfed. You don't want to be using it at max range. You're going to wait until enemy units are coming closer and then use it. Cavalry changes. All light cavalry have been bumped up to 500 manpower. Means they're going to be stronger. I found that generally light cavalry would drop off in Act 3 because of the lethality, and this will make provincial cavalry a little bit better. That's true. Cavalry shooting damage reduced by 20%. Cavalry can no longer fire their carbines through other cavalry units. So that means if you form a if you form a dragoon death ball like this, they are not going to be able to just wreak havoc shooting through each other. Now, here's one that's interesting. It turns out this is a bug, although I thought it was intended. Fixed a bug where when assigning a carbine to a cavalry unit, they wouldn't get the melee/charge stat benefits. This rendered about half the carbines useless because some carbines specialize in melee and have a poor accuracy stat. So now there's actually going to be a point to the Jönköping carbines, the Tula carbines, the Neustadt carbines, um, because your cavalry is actually going to benefit from the higher melee stats on those carbines. Cossack cavalry now have sabers by default instead of worn swords. Cavalry units had the wrong walk speed and have been buffed. French chevaux légers accuracy increased by 5. British provincial light dragoon and dragoon accuracy reduced by -5. Russian and Austrian horse grenadier melee reduced by -5, which makes them less outright superior to the cuirassiers. And then this is going to be a change to our light infantry. Open order damage reduction is now only -50% instead of -60. So they're going to take a little bit more damage from getting shot at. Artillery can no longer fire canister or grape shot through light infantry. And here's one that's interesting that I didn't think about, but some people found out about it apparently. Light infantry units can no longer leave open order. This change is being done because of exploits where you can switch to line formation right before a charge hits you in order to completely avoid the melee penalty from open order. I wish I had thought of that. That's kind of genius. There's also an exploit where if you line up several open order units, you can toggle them into line and have them all fire over each other, which is too powerful. And then last, all light infantry units have had their reload stat reduced by -5. So they're all going to reload a little bit slower. There's some minor unit changes here. Swiss units had their morale reduced by 5. I don't think that's too bad. They already have like insane morale, so I don't think that's too bad of a nerf. Irish units had their melee buffed by 5. I think that's good because when I played as the French, their Irish units were kind of lackluster to me because they were smaller unit size and they did have the best charge, but their melee was like on par with I think like French grenadiers and maybe even the German grenadiers, and I questioned why even go for the Irish. British unit accuracy no longer increases by increments of 10 per upgrade and is now only +5 per upgrade. It's still higher than other nations, but no longer receives a disproportionate upgrade amount per level. All supply wagons gain +5 morale. Sorry, just trying to see how much more we have here. I think we're getting towards the end of the meaningful things. So there was an ammo rework. All ammo types are now additive and not multipliers. This means they benefit lower tier troops more than they did previously, but they don't scale as well with higher tier troops. The issue is that the excellent buckshot rounds improved accuracy by +70%. If your base accuracy was 20, then that meant you went up to 34 accuracy, which is a +14 increase, which isn't very impressive. However, if you stacked the right items and had around 80 accuracy, then the 70% increase brought you to 136. This meant you were getting +56 accuracy, and it's even worse when stacked onto light infantry, who already get a firepower buff. Below are the changed values of the ammo types. In the same examples used, the 20 base accuracy unit would get increased up to 55, that's a +35, which is higher than what they were at before, which was 34. And the higher tier unit with 80 base accuracy would go up to 115, which is lower. So basically, your lower tier units will benefit more from specialized ammunition than your higher tier units. Let's see, officer trait changes. Calculated trait was changed. It provided +15% artillery range and -5% artillery reload. And now the reload penalty is up to -10%. Again, trying to combat that artillery range. Burley was slightly nerfed so that now grenade throw range is only increased by plus 25% instead of plus 40. They fixed some descriptions which weren't correct. Changed Zealous to only get a plus 5% fire damage received penalty instead of plus 10%. The Inspiring trait now provides Officer Radius Morale plus 15% instead of Morale plus 15% and has been made an uncommon trait instead of rare. Officer Radius Morale modifies the base amount of morale an officer provides. So if you have an officer that provides 10% morale to those in his proximity, then the 15% from the Inspiring trait will be added to it. It essentially makes the brigade officer much more powerful to those in his command radius. It is synergized well with any trait or doctrine that boosts the size of the command radius. The new Confident trait now provides morale plus 15% instead of morale plus 10%. The Precise trait now gives plus 10% accuracy and reduces melee skill by minus 5% instead of plus 15% accuracy and minus 10% melee. Next up, there have been some unit cost changes. Essentially, the difference is that recruit units are going to be 325, or sorry, they're going to be 25 cheaper, is what I meant to say. They're going to be $25 cheaper, and non-recruit units are going to be $50 more expensive. I think, yeah, here we go. Battalion artillery is the only exception. Their prices are unchanged. And the reason for this is because if you get the recruit units, you're getting like a worn musket and a worn bayonet, which are really junky items, compared to if you get a higher tier unit, like the French Fusiliers. I think these guys come with Charlevilles and a socket bayonet. So when you include the price of the items, you're actually getting like really good free stuff. So that's why they made these changes, is because it was relatively more valuable to just buy the upgraded unit than to buy the recruit unit. There have been some changes here to the way achievements are earned, some quality of life additions, some visual changes. Yeah, but that is all of the meaningful stuff. So my overall thoughts, I mean, it's definitely going to change the way that I play. Light infantry took a good nerf. Light cavalry got a buff. I don't use a lot of light cavalry, so this makes me want to use them more for sure. Artillery got some tweaks. They're not going to be as good at counter battery, but overall, I'd say that I like the changes. If they didn't intend to be firing through light infantry, and if they didn't intend for you to be able to use grape shot to snipe artillery from across the map, I get that, and I understand them changing it. I like a lot of the changes that they made here with the army compositions and the like doctrines that came with the army compositions. I think those were mostly good. Yeah. I think Hanover is going to be challenging, but it could end up being really strong if you do it right. So I'm looking forward to experimenting with that. My big thoughts here are I feel like the British really got the short end of the stick out of this update, because they got their national doctrine got nerfed. You're getting $2 less. The dragoons got nerfed. Let's see, where was that? Here in the cavalry changes. Shooting damage reduction nerfed. Not being able to shoot through other cavalry. While that was a bug or an exploit, like that's a nerf to them. And they got a nerf. They specifically got a accuracy nerf here. So I think their dragoons are going to be less powerful. And then they also got hit. Here we go, where the British unit accuracy no longer increases by plus 10. It only goes up by plus 5. So I mean, I think the British got hit by the nerf hammer in this patch. But That's okay. That's okay. I think a lot of British players are going to be upset. Everyone else, I feel like, got off pretty well. Like I feel like everyone else didn't. They didn't have too big of a change. Um, I think battles will be harder. The campaign itself is going to be easier because of the changes that they made. Where's the camp? Here we go. So reducing the or delaying the headquarters a little bit more. That's going to make the campaign side of things easier. Some of the armies in Act 3 are easier. Ammunition is cheaper. So a lot of things here will make the campaign easier. But I think that these AI changes, right, where they come at you in more of a line instead of piecemeal, that's going to make battles more challenging. And also getting items that are meaningful instead of getting, joke items like medicinal herbs, that's going to make battles more difficult as well because it's going to make enemy units stronger. So I think the battle side of things is going to be harder. I think the campaign side is going to be easier. Um, and we'll just have to see if how that shakes out. If easing the campaign is enough to offset the changes to battle. All in all, though, I'm relatively happy with this update. It's going to be changing my play styles away from canister counter battery or light infantry cheese where you snipe the artillery. Um, and no longer can I just put light infantry in front of cannons and have them act as a screen. I'm actually going to have to be thinking more carefully about where I place my artillery and making gaps in the line for them. And I like the change to light cavalry. I think light cavalry is going to be more viable, so that's good. In any case, I think we've pretty much covered everything that we needed to in the patch notes. If you think there's anything important that I missed, please leave a comment. If you think I have the wrong take on something, like I don't know, the British, if you think the British they're going to be stronger than ever after this patch, go ahead and let me know. I would appreciate the feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are on the patch, and as always, appreciate you guys watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and we'll keep putting out more. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next video.